Stellaris is a grand strategy game by Paradox Interactive. While it was originally released in 2016 for the PC, it's now released on the PS4 as well. Stellaris is a game that puts you in charge of a space empire. You'll be managing the population of your planets, building ships to explore and conduct war, and deciding your place in the galaxy. But above all else, Stellaris is really a game that creates stories. Playing your civilization and watching it grow makes you really attached to it, and you're really invested in where it's going and what'll happen before the end of the game. My first game was with the peace-loving Teresi. They were a fox-like species who wanted nothing more than a united galaxy, with all the people in the universe being part of one team. We made quick allies with another empire and brought together everyone willing to join our might, while crushing anyone who refused. The Twismalls were a race of elitist bugs who everyone found disgusting. We captured primitive species and hostile empire outposts and made them our slaves. Eventually, we came across a black hole far from our home system, and there we discovered our purpose in the universe. You see, a great worm had created our galaxy, and all species must serve the great worm, for we are all the worm's children. And the Lyrites were genius salamanders, who wanted to put their consciousness into machines so they would no longer be frail in their organic bodies. Ironically, our end in that game was brought about by an alien parasite. While Stellaris is able to make you have interesting stories like this, it's mainly able to achieve this through time. And that brings me to my biggest complaint about the game. You spend so long in every individual game of Stellaris, and it just gets boring sometimes. There are times where nothing interesting happens for a good 20 to 25 minutes. And while there are 3 different options for game speeds, it really would have benefited from having an even faster setting than even the fastest one, or be able to skip ahead to the next interesting event. Before I get into specific trophies, I will say that the game was bugged at launch. 3 of the last 4 trophies on the list weren't set to unlock the correct trophy when you did the requirements, and the very last trophy on the list didn't unlock anything. This was fixed in the patch that released the Leviathan DLC, so now the Platinum is achievable. As far as specific trophies go, the first 4 I want to talk about are the 4 that are tied to Empire's Civics. This is something that you define as sort of the lifeblood of your empire, and although you can change it throughout the game, it's pretty hard to do so even when you know what you're doing. So each of these trophies require a more dedicated playthrough in order to achieve them. Not only does this limit what type of empires you need to be playing to get the Platinum, but it also limits how you have to play them. For instance, it's not enough to be materialistic. You have to be a materialistic empire that's diving into robotics. It's not enough to just be a pacifist empire, you need to somehow eliminate everyone else who isn't pacifist. And while these playthroughs can be interesting, there isn't a dedicated one for every type of civic. So it sort of limits the playthroughs that you're going to start if your main goal is to get the Platinum. A few of the trophies are completely random. For instance, Then Virgil Now Beatrice is triggered from an event that will happen randomly or not, depending on the game and how the dice get rolled. What Was Will Be will also trigger from an event, but you need to make the correct series of choices in order to get to the end of the event chain. Queening requires a specific endgame crisis, and there are many endgame crises available in the game. You won't know which one triggers until it already happens multiple hours into your playthrough. Old Friends requires a gift from a fallen empire. Now, the fallen empire that spawns may not match your empire's civics, so they might not like you, and you might never get a gift. My last trophy was Put a Ring on It, which requires you to have a ring world section as your capital. I had played 5 games of Stellaris and still had never seen a ring world. It had just never spawned. I finally had to rely on the precursor event chain, which is an event chain that spawns depending on where you begin the game. Each of the 5 different precursors bring you to a different end of their event chain, and the Cyberx precursors have a ring world in their home system. Luckily, I was able to find a Reddit post by the user Aslium with pictures that describe where you need to spawn in order to get which precursor. Then, after I had the ring world, I had to make sure I had the right technology in order to repair it. And while the tech tree does have some sort of dependencies and requirements in order to unlock later parts of the tree, it's not as clear cut as that, and there's a lot of random options to it. Even after finally getting the technology, which took a long time to research, I still had to repair the ring world, colonize it, and then make it my home system. It's just one example in this game of how the trophies are just very time consuming and sometimes require dedicated playthroughs. So while I am enjoying my time with Stellaris, especially with the multiplayer patch that's dropped recently, if you're going for the Platinum, be aware that it's going to take some time and a lot of dedicated playthroughs.